SaaS Therapy.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of SaaS Therapy, the show where we help you save your most important business relationships, your customers. I'm Todd Kirk. I'm your host. I'm joined by my co-host, Casey Trujillo, and today we have a wonderful guest, Andrew Carothers. You got to tell me, Andrew, if I got Carothers. Is it Carothers? Did I get that right?
It's Carothers. You nailed it.
Oh, yes.
Woo-hoo.
On the first try, even. Awesome. We're so pumped to have Andrew on the show today. Andrew is a senior customer experience leader who helps customers increase customer adoption and retention, improve renewal rates, and drive growth. He's a founding member of the Cisco Systems CX function, and he played a central role in the company's CX strategy, in particular, its digital CX. And he's also a 12-time International Customer Experience Award winner, which is very impressive. He frequently writes and speaks on CX topics and co-hosted the Publicity Handbook at McGraw-Hill, a Fortune Book Club selection. And he currently serves as a member of the Board of Advisors for the University of San Francisco School of Management Strategic Artificial Intelligence Program. So, Andrew, welcome to SaaS Therapy. We're pumped to have you here.
I am pumped to be here. I love the show.
So, Andrew, you got to tell me how. I did not know universities have an AI committee. Is this something that's unique to them, or is this something you see popping up all over?
It's starting to pop up. So USF has got a graduate, they've got their graduate program, and they've added on strategic AI. So that's, it's San Francisco, so it's probably a little bit ahead of the game.
Right.
But some other schools are adding it as well. And I think we're going to see, more and more of these as the time goes by.
Oh, that's awesome. It's the first time I've ever heard of that being on someone's bio. So that was, again, to our audience, this is the type of people that we bring onto the show. They are definitely trailblazers. But Andrew, let's get to know you just a little bit personally, a little bit better. We'd like to have a little fun here at the beginning. Would you rather, so this is the game we play, would you rather have an unlimited gift card to your favorite restaurant, or an unlimited gift card to like your favorite hobby shop?
Oh, wow. That's a surprising question. I'm going to go hobby shop because, even unlimited at my favorite restaurant, I would want more variety out of food. So, unless it's like the food hall at the local mall, I'm going hobby shop.
Yeah. I could see you're a foodie. All right. You got that fine taste at the mall. I love that. All right.
Yeah. High end.
Okay. Would you rather become friends with your celebrity crush? Again, this is if you were single. We're going to pretend that you were single. Would you rather become friends with your celebrity crush or be able to go on one date with them?
Oh, wow. I'm going to say be friends with my celebrity crush.
Okay, there we go.
Because that's going to assume that I'm actually going to like my celebrity crush when I actually meet them. I come from a Hollywood background. My dad was a screenwriter for years and years and years. So
what?
There are a lot of celebrities I would not want to spend time with.
Casey, you know what they always say, never meet your heroes.
That's what they
exactly.
say.
Andrew basically is realizing, you know what, I don't know that I don't know that I want the shine to be taken away from my eyes,
And this is the last question, Andrew. This is probably the toughest would you rather question I've ever asked anyone, so be prepared.
Right.
Would you rather have super slow internet or always be on low phone battery?
That is like, which circle of hell do I want to be in? I'm going to say low phone battery.
Oh, there we go. That's awesome. Andrew, thanks for doing that with us. It always, people get to see your personality come out a little bit because it's one of our audience's favorite things that we do at the beginning. But Todd, we got an expert here. Where do we get started with our first question?
Well, Andrew, what I think is really incredible just looking at your background is just the fact that you've got this experience, customer experience in particular, across lots of different products, working with internal teams, customers, partners. And I guess what I want to get started with is, at least for me, every organization that I talk to has a little bit of a different idea of what customer experience actually means. And so I'm pumped to get your take as somebody in this space. What would you like? How would you define the customer experience so that maybe that will help dive into this conversation today, just so that we can level set with everybody who might, when they read the topic of this episode and they think customer experience, they might all have a different idea. What would you define customer experience as?
Boy, that's a great question. It is a hot topic these days in the field of customer experience because so many different, it became a hot thing to do or to have, right? It became trendy. So then everybody started to jump on the bandwagon. Some people mean it to, customer support, or others mean it to be, humans, customer success folks trying to drive adoption. So my viewpoint, I actually wrote an article, a year or so ago for the Customer Experience Professional Association's blog called about how CX has reached its teenage years. And part of that is like, there's a there now, but we don't quite know who we are. So this ties right into that. I view customer experience in an expansive way. It is the delivery of a brand's promise. So the brand promises certain expectations from working with that brand, whether it be, the product or the price or the experience, whatever it might be. And customer experience is then the delivery on that or lack of delivery on that. And so it is every touch point that it is made up of every touch point that a customer has, whether that be on the phone, internet, chat, whatever, right? Human or digital. And it requires a set of processes and platforms and connectivity amongst those in order to deliver that experience that customers are looking for, that ultimately then provides the experience that's promised in the brand. Does that make sense?
It makes perfect sense, Andrew, but it seems so hard.
So
how do I do this? Am I hiring someone that is over customer experience? Is that a specific role? And then if it is a role, how do I start this? Like where would be the beginnings? How do I even have a baseline so everybody's using the same terminology? Or because everybody has their own objectives, right? You have the support team and their objectives is, hey, let's reduce down tier 0, tier 1 calls. How do we make this more efficient so we're not getting on the phone with our customers? You have customer success that's saying, hey, I want to be very super strategic. You have customer education and their goals of what we want to get people into our university. How do you get an experience when everybody has different goals that seem that maybe they don't all align to the experience?
Mm-hmm. Maybe not. Yeah. So it does require hiring somebody who is responsible for customer experience, and you sort of think of it as less about, and this is where I think some folks in the CX world have maybe made a mistake, less about instituting new CX related metrics like CSAT scores or MPS scores and hiring somebody who's then responsible for driving those, because that's a misalignment from the business metrics of, reducing churn or increasing growth or other types of financial related business metrics. So I think it's important that there is a CX, for lack of a better term, czar, who doesn't necessarily own everything that touches the customer, and in fact wouldn't, but will collaborate with those other teams and owns the discipline of experience. So what should that experience be? So this is why you need to have somebody separate, right? Who is hired specifically to be the leader of CX in the organization, because that person needs to be knowledgeable about the discipline of experience, and that person needs to understand the different touch points and how to then tie all those together, how to get people aligned to the same same customer centricity, and then how to then lead the effort to understand what is it that customers want, right? To bring in the voice of the customer, to understand it, to bring it in and infuse it to everything from product development to customer support, to all the different elements of the company, because it all touches the customer in one way or another. So I think you need to have that, a person or a team responsible for that, and in a way, aligned to the other parts of the business as well, to sort of, herd the cats to be very customer focused.
So I like that a lot, Andrew. And something you said at the start really has been bouncing around in my head as we've started this conversation, which I'm going to try to pare it back. Your definition of CX, which sounded like your definition of CX is the delivery on the promise of the brand. And I really liked that phrase you said there, because I think so often the main focus of client success is delivery of value, right? I have to get you ROI. And I also need to be able to track or prove to you that I delivered some level of a good experience, which is why they focus on CSAT so often, even though being satisfied and actually getting value aren't the same thing. But delivery on the promise of the brand feels even a step above both of those things, which I think is interesting, because so many companies, I don't know if they've actually gotten to that level of maturity yet of actually thinking through who are we and what do we want to present to our customers. Like, the first thing that popped to my mind was like, okay, Southwest Airlines, everybody knows they're the fun and cheap airline. And so most of their interactions and their experiences that they deliver to a customer are either trying to reinforce this idea that we're inexpensive. So when you hop on our app, you're going to be able to get a low price fare. Whenever you line up, we're not going to have a bunch of different classes. And when you get on the airline, the flight attendant's going to make jokes, right? Like, so it's really easy to see that their interactions are defined around that core identity of who they are. And so I love that idea, but I actually feel like a lot of organizations, like, I don't know that many CSMs could articulate, this is who we are, and that influences the experiences that we deliver. And I'm not even sure if that's what you're suggesting, but that's what's been battling, or what I'm battling with in my brain. And I'd love to get your reaction to at least my takeaway from your kind of your setup there.
Yep. So I agree with you. The first part of my career was in marketing, so I kind of come from that thought process. I agree with you that there are still a lot of companies that don't have a unique value proposition. They don't have a brand. They just sort of do what they do, hope to do it well, and maybe create more awareness in their competitors, and build a customer base that way. And that's fine. I would suggest that even for those customers, for those companies, that what they're looking for is what they still need to provide to their customers is an easy way to provide to get their customers to value. So customers want whatever value they're expecting to get from that company, whether it's because the brand, the company has made a promise in terms of the brand, or whether they haven't, but it's a product I needed to meet X need, whatever it might be. Customers expecting a certain value out of their purchase, and they've made the ROI calculation that's led them to pull the trigger on the purchase. It's then incumbent on the company, and I would say through the CX function, to then make sure that they are getting that value. And part of getting that value means as quickly as possible and as easily as possible. So it's smoothing out the processes, etc. If Southwest, and I just flew on Southwest last weekend, so everything you said is correct. Go on the app, funny flight attendant, all great. But if it had been very difficult for me to get on the app, or to find the seats I can't find the seats on Southwest, or to find whatever I was looking for. In fact, I did try to change my flight, get on an earlier one, got on standby, ultimately I actually had multiple interactions around my return flight, and it was very easy to do. If it had been difficult, I would not be a loyal Southwest customer. There are too many other options for me, and while they tend to be on the lower cost side, most airlines, just to use this example, especially on the lower cost side, will match. In fact, Frontier is probably lower cost than Southwest.
Right.
But I'm not going on Frontier because, it's a horrible experience. I will go on Southwest because it's kind of a fun experience, even though it's a little bit of a cattle call. It's still a fun experience as, relative to other airlines. So CX is, even for companies that don't have a clearly defined brand promise, the CX function needs to deliver the value that customers are looking for quickly, easily, and I'll add one more to that, consistently. It's not about the occasional wow moment. It's about consistently providing me with the experience. That way, I know what to expect.
So, Andrew, can you give us maybe some examples, maybe at Cisco or other places that you've worked, like what would be that experience that you're trying to provide, and then maybe walk through 2 or 3 examples of how you've helped these different teams understand that, and maybe some examples of how they provide that service? I know we gave one for Southwest, but let's get something in technology.
Sure.
Could you give an example like that for us?
Yeah, let's I'll focus in on Cisco. So we built the CX function because we were moving to from hardware to SaaS-based business and recurring revenue-based business. So we needed to make sure that customers were going to get value from what they purchased and renew their subscriptions, and hopefully upsell, cross-sell as well. So we put together. We first off identified all the different data sources. Like step one, and this would be my recommendation for anybody getting started. Identify your data sources and pull them together, whether you house them all in one database or whether you just, have the access to pull the data in real time into a data lake that you can then, use. Step one is data. Data is the fuel for everything. Not all data is not all fuel is clean. So you have to access the data. You have to clean the data. You have to protect the data if there's, personally identifiable information in there, et cetera. So there's a bunch of data work that has to happen first. Once you've got that set, then you can start to build the customer experience. So step one, understand what the customer wants, right? Through customer surveys, through customer advisory boards, through focus groups, et cetera. Understand what is the customer trying to do. Now, bring in the product teams on this because hopefully they've done a lot of this research already when they were developing the product. But as built is not always the same as used. So talk to customers as well to understand what are they trying to get out of using this product and how do they use it? And then understand from that, what are the key moments, right? The moments that matter. And then build out as sort of part of the next map, what information do we need to provide them? Like what is that journey and how do we need to guide them through that journey? And what information do we need to guide them through that journey? And then lastly, what's the technology map that we need so that we can provide that in an automated, orchestrated way so customers get what they want or need when they need it, even hopefully before they know they need it, right? So the way this plays out then, customer buys, let's say, a security SaaS product from Cisco. And we worked with the security team. We've got 9 or 10 different products in our security portfolio. Many of them came from acquisitions. So all of them with their own individual, goals, et cetera. When a customer bought, so at one point we put together the security team put together a bundle for customers who'd been asking for it for years. I need my web security, my email security, et cetera. Just give me a bundle. So we put together a bundle and they loved it, right? We started selling it like hotcakes. But then when customers purchased the bundle with 9 products in it, they got 9 different welcome emails, sending them to 9 different getting started pages, right? It was like working with 9 different companies. So here's how we then stepped in with the discipline of experience, right? We then worked with that team, explained to the overall security leadership, as well as the leadership of the individual products, the problems that created, and then shared with them our own customer research with some fairly spicy takes from customers about how they dislike that experience so much. And in fact, it was enough to make them leave. Because in all honesty, not all 9 of those products are best of breed. So what's the benefit of buying the bundle if I'm not getting 9 best of breed products, but I'm still working with what feels like 9 different companies? So we were able to share with those teams and get them aligned and then build out an experience where when customers buy the bundle, and this works if they buy individual products too, same process no matter what the product is or bundle, they are then sent a welcome message. It takes them to a unique landing page that we built out. So it's customized to what they've bought, right? What customers want to know is, right, know me. I've shared with you a bunch of information. Use it to improve my experience. If you don't, I'm going to be frustrated. So know me. And then make it easy for me to get started. So we send them directly to getting started material, step-by-step instructions. We do this in a multi-channel way as well. So if they log into Cisco.com, not all visitors do, but customers have a specific customer ID. If they log in, then we can personalize that experience to them with pop-ups and other messages. You just bought this security product, click here to get started, right? So, or following them on social media, or if they go to the Cisco community, having banner, messages, et cetera, driving them there. in product as well, so that it's all consistent, no matter the channel that they're engaging us with or through. It is step-by-step instructions. And then one more step, making sure that we provided that information in a personalized way to them. So what I mean by that is twofold. One is personalizing the content, right? It's not all in English. It's translated into different languages. Some of it is very visual, like an infographic. Some of it's more of an FAQ. Some of it's more of your standard user manual. Different people want information in different ways. So taking that same core information, providing it, giving them an hour-long video, giving them a series of small videos. Also, understanding where they are in their adoption process once they do get started, and then sending them information that's tailored to that step. If they've taken the first step, they get congratulations, you've taken the first step. Here's the next thing you need to do. If they haven't taken the first step, and according to our business rules, it's been 10 days or 30 days, whatever the business rules state, that allows us to say they're stuck, then we send them a message saying, it seems like you're stuck. Here are the steps that you should take to, kind of get unstuck, right? So that's not, hey, we're going to send you a message 2 days after purchase and then 10 days and then 14. It's we're going to send you messages tailored to where you are in the adoption process, including it's time to renew. And here are the steps to take to renew. And then when they go to renew, here's the upsell opportunity, here's the cross-sell opportunity, et cetera.
That's, I love that, Andrew. And, you're speaking my language there when you start talking about intentionality. Ultimately, the way I would probably summarize everything you just said is you got to be really intentional. And I think a lot of times we either let the customer dictate the experience, right? We're wholly reactive just based off of, complaints and support tickets and things of that nature, or we are super prescriptive and ignore their input and force them down whatever channel we want regardless. But it's kind of this, for us, Casey and I, the SaaS therapy whole idea is this fact it's a little bit of a dance, right, with you and the customer, and understanding how to be a good dance partner with them and is really important so that you can get where they need to go.
Yeah. Well, what my team's trying to do is, if we're dancing with the customers, if we step on the customer's toes, we certainly want to, make it right. We want to apologize. We want to, remedy the situation, et cetera. Even better, we want to make sure that we're not dancing, that we're not stepping on the customer's toes. Mm-hmm. And even better, we want the customer to dance with us and feel, a gentle yet firm hand guiding them to whatever, the waltz, the fox, whatever would tango, whatever, right? Because they don't know how to, most of the time, right? Especially if they're new, they're not the experts in using these products. They want to be, and they want to be experts in getting value from the product. So that's where we want to provide a firm guiding hand that steers them away from the spilled drink on the floor I'd say, we want customers, we want to redirect customers from the cliff that they're driving toward. And even better, we want to make sure they don't even know that they're driving toward the cliff, right? They're just going left now and not realizing the disaster that they've just averted. So that's even better, right? Good is, let's remedy the situation if a problem arises, and let's not make that a hassle. Better is, let's prevent the problem from arising in the first place. And best is, let's get them, to hero status within their organizations quickly and seamlessly. Because and this goes to kind of earlier in the conversation, we were talking about metrics and how I'm not a huge fan of focusing in on CSAT and NPS, but rather business metrics. Not only do those business metrics, align with what the other business leaders care about, and as we talked about, it's important to align the other parts of the business in this CX effort, right? So the best way to do that is to align your work to the metrics that these other leaders are focusing on. But also being able to focus in on the type of experience that I've discussed is going to drive greater renewals. It's going to drive upsell. It's going to drive cross-sell. You're going to drive, like all the data shows, it's going to drive loyalty. And when you know customers and you treat them with respect and you guide them to success, the number 3 buying criteria is the expected customer experience. So number 1, this is according to Gartner research year in, year out. Number 1 is functionality, right? Does this product do what I need to do? Number 2 is quality, right? Is it going to break or is it going to work? And number 3 is, am I actually going to get the value out of it that I'm looking for? And if so, how easy or difficult is it going to be to do that? Number 4 is price. So providing a good experience is not only important post-purchase, leading to higher renewals, et cetera. It's important pre-purchase.
Andrew, how do you measure that experience? Because everybody's taking credit for something. No, our customer success person, they're the reason why they renewed. They're the reason why we upsold. The account executive, oh, she was just brilliant and talked to the executive sponsor and they have a great relationship. And you know what? Our customer education team delivered some outstanding professional services. Everybody seems like they're taking credit and I don't know where the credit goes. And you want the credit to go everywhere, but in regards to customer experience, if someone was trying to justify this to their organization to say, hey, I think we need to create this experience. We seem really disjointed. You know, I don't even know how we get onboard our customers. Once we get them as a CS person, you know, they're usually not in a good state and we're trying to fix things. I see this everywhere. Every software vendor seems that they're struggling. They don't even know their own experience. I wish there was like an undercover boss for the tech area. But how would you measure that? How would you come in there and say, we're going to implement this. It's going to take X amount of time. And we will know that this customer experience has helped us as an organization because of what would you say?
So first off, I would have 2 approaches, right, around measuring. So one is, let's baseline the current situation. Let's baseline the current situation with the different ways that we're providing customer experience. So for example, which customers are we not touching at all? Which customers are we touching with CSMs? Which ones are we touching with executive sponsors and CSMs, right? You're focusing on those things. And then let's figure out what are the metrics that we want to measure at each one of those stratifications. So certainly renewals, maybe it's customer support tickets opened, maybe it's upsells, right? Let's figure out what are the important metrics for the business and baseline, where are we today, given the various channels of engagement that we have currently. Then let's start building out the improved process. And I would add to that a digital only process, right? Which customers are we only touching digitally? I believe, and there's tons of data that backs me up, I didn't make this up on my own, that every customer wants a digital first experience. That said, many companies still think of digital as the scaling engine and are maybe a little hesitant to use digital as a digital first approach for their high-end customers. But, that philosophical difference aside, I would add a digital only component and then compare after 6 months or so of actually having the process in place. And it might take a year to get the process set up, depending on how difficult it is to get the data in order, the things we were talking about. So then I would make sure to be able to compare on those metrics that we talked about. How are customers, what are the customer metrics for digital only, for CSM only, for CSM plus digital, for CSM plus digital plus executive sponsor, figure out all the permutations and then have the data. Because I think it's important to understand the business at that granular level. For one, be able to optimize processes, but 2, to be able to build alignment within the organization, right? It's one thing to go into a business and, do a meeting and say, hey, I think we should do things differently and we should do it this way. And other people have different opinions. It's another thing to be able to go in and say, here's the data. Here's our own data that says, right, when we do things. So I'll give you a specific example. A few years ago, our renewals sales team started, they chunked off the lowest part of their segmentation, right? It was $25,000 of annual recurring revenue value and below. And they said, all right, we're going to take our people off of that, renewals managers off of that, and make that a digital only approach. Let's see how you guys do, right? You keep talking a good game, prove it. So we did. And it turns out that now we'd already built our digital journey, right? So this was just a matter of them saying, we're going to take our people off of that. The expectation that people had was that the CSM covered accounts would have higher renewal rates, or the renewal manager covered accounts would have higher renewal rates than the digital only no human. That's not what happened. So So the sales leadership came back to us the next year and said, all right, we're going to bump you up to $50,000. Now we go to every weekly sales call. We've got our quota, right? And so we've continued to outperform to the point where now we have the digital only space is $100,000 of annual recurring revenue. So now those renewal managers are now all focused in on the higher value ones. We also know that digital plus renewal manager leads to higher renewal rates than just digital. But at the sub $100,000 level, digital alone, like that seems to be the cap that we've reached, right? Digital alone, and different organizations will have a different cap level. So it's my point being, we could never have had those conversations with our sales leaders if we didn't have the data, and we couldn't optimize the level, and the sales leaders couldn't optimize the level of, at what point should we go digital only versus, digital plus CSM or renewal manager, right? We had to test and do the data. So it's so important to actually run the test and get the data.
Andrew, I think something that you said there, like, by the way, I love everything you just shared, because I'm like, oh man, like, hallelujah. Like,
I knew it was Todd's turn to speak. So I was like, I want to come off mute and say something, but Andrew, you couldn't talk to two more people that are trying to say this every day to software vendors. You're crazy for not doing more with digital. You're just nuts. Yeah.
But see, the thing that sticks out to me, and this is maybe a little bit of therapy for me a little bit, is that so often I think we talk to a lot of CS professionals who are just, they're terrified by everything you just said, right? Because what that means is, well, if I can renew accounts that are worth $100,000 every single year without ever being involved, well, then that is a threat to their job. And so how do you balance that? Because I think one of the things that's hard is, like, there is some really wonderful and powerful things that humans can do and that they should do. But you're absolutely right. Like, customers want to feel like they can do it on their own. They want to feel like they can own their own success. And if I have to talk to you in this modern world to feel like I can actually get the value out of your software, and I can't do it on my own, then that by its very nature feels like a negative customer experience. And so how do we get that through the heads of the people of the world who are actually should be really invested in having the best possible customer experience, but actually hear everything that you just said as a threat to their livelihood and the way that they operate today?
Okay, so good question. Let's a couple of points. First off, customers want a digital first experience. It doesn't mean that they want a digital only experience necessarily. If they can get the information they're looking for or troubleshoot or whatever it is, digital only, great. That's what they want. If they can't, and oftentimes with tech products, they can't. Right, these are complex. They're, woven throughout the organization. Then they want to be able to easily connect with the human. So digital doesn't mean no human connection. The robots are going to take over. And I think it's important to make that point when facing that resistance or anticipating the fear that you just discussed. The second thing that I would say is we need to make a distinction between the individual customer success person or renewal person and the leader of that team, right? So the leader of that team is focused in on sort of, team-wide metrics for adoption. How far in the process are customers getting? How quickly are they getting there, right? To whatever level we determine as adoption. The individuals are worried about, are concerned about their specific accounts. So I know this sounds a little harsh, but I think it's up to the leaders to figure out the best way to allocate their resources to get their customers, the mass of their customers forward. So to the leaders, I would say, when you bring in digital as part of your strategy for all of your customers, and maybe the lead engagement strategy for a certain segment of your customers, you are then freeing up time. I know this sounds like a cliche, but you can maximize the human time with your more important customers. And, whether that be because they're the biggest spenders or they're strategic customers, or you're trying to get, for whatever reason, into a new industry, whatever it might be. As you define important customers, you may want more of a human touch available for that. So I might say, if I make this up, but if I'm a sales leader or a CS leader, I might want to take a portion of my team, my individual contributors, and put them in a pool so that, as customers engage digitally, which maybe just, or they if any customers phone in these days or whatever, right? They can be just like the general intake folks to drive adoption or renewals. And then so I've taken off a slice of the folks to do that. And then I've got the rest of the folks that then I can provide a more high touch or hands-on focus. And maybe they're doing different things, right? Maybe I wish I could have more in-person events, but I don't have the staff for that. Now I do, right? I've reallocated resources. I haven't cut resources. I've reallocated resources. I think the bigger challenge for folks when it comes to all things digital is going to be AI, right? That's the biggest fear factor for folks, because I think that's going to change things even more. Right. But simply having digital journeys, I think, only helps. I think it's easy to explain to folks. And I think that's based on the conversations we had with sales leaders and in sales teams and individuals and customer success teams as well. Because there was initially fear. Once we were able to explain to them what we were doing, what the process was, and be transparent. So, all of our digital journeys, we make sure that we roll out to our internal folks first so that they know what's going to be hitting their customers. And then we make sure that we integrate the customer engagement, everything from opening up an email to taking certain steps to getting stuck, all the telemetry data, all of that gets shared in our Salesforce consoles for our agents. So they have full transparency to what their customers are doing digitally as well as through direct email. And that's important too, that they've got that transparency. Now they're not afraid anymore. Now they see it as a way to boost what they're doing.
Andrew, I'm starting to see the magic in outlining what does your experience look like today, because if your experience today isn't very great and you have some type of digital experience, but it's introduced at the wrong time, or it's just not a great experience and your customers actually hate it, well, of course you wouldn't want to expand out on your digital footprint, because right now it's not good. So it's first understand your experience is what I'm hearing you say. Go through it, actually see what your customers are dealing with, get the feedback. It's not necessarily that maybe they're having opposition to the digital process or using that and not talking to a human. It's just the experience you're giving them is not good. And that's what's being magnified. Is that what I'm hearing you say?
100%. I hear people say customers don't want to deal with a chatbot. No, actually, they don't want to deal with a bad chatbot. They do want to deal with a good chatbot, right? Customers don't want X or Y or Z. No, just as I would say, customers don't want, the X product. Many customers do. It's just that your product sucks. Or, right. So it's not like these sweeping statements about what customers want or don't want without qualifying, without the nuance of, right. So customers want a good digital experience. They get frustrated if they have a bad one. They get frustrated and a bad one means it doesn't meet their needs and doesn't provide an easy off ramp to go to another channel, right? Whether it's picking up the phone or, reach, whatever it might be. So to be able to provide, So how do you know? You first have to, as you said, you first have to figure out what customers want. And I think that there's a shift that's already taken place with what customers want. And not every business has made the shift in terms of their thinking. It used to be, companies were in charge. We make X product, we sell it for Y, you buy it. Here's some information to use it. Good luck. I'll come back to you. Then this was Cisco's approach. I'll come back to you in 8-10 years, whatever, and sell you more hardware. And there you go. You're locked in. You paid up front. Maybe you've got an IT shop that's trained in Cisco. You're not going anywhere, regardless of how buggy it is or whatever. So then, really hastened by the rise of SaaS, now customers are in charge. They're not paying for everything up front, right? They're paying annual or even monthly rates. There are many more competitors. It's oftentimes mostly not on-prem. So it's so easy for customers to now be in charge and to switch. Like the barriers to exit are so low. So what that means is now we're in the age of the customer, not of the company. So companies need to respond to that, and some have, but building a website and maybe putting more information on there and sending out an email 2 days after a purchase and 10 days later and then a month later, right? That's still forcing the customer to behave the way you want them to behave if you're the company, as opposed to, I need to change my processes and my approach and my way of thinking and my access to data, et cetera, so that I'm responding to the way you want me to respond. Because if I don't, you're just going to, I lose. You go somewhere else. That mental shift, that business shift, I still see a lot of companies that haven't made it yet. Not so much in the SaaS world, but in a lot of companies, I still see it that way. Like, if we build it, they will come. Not anymore. They may come, but then they're going to leave.
Yeah, Andrew, I think you're a great example of someone who has been willing to do the hard work of trying to adjust to the shift of the technology landscape over the last decade, which is amazing. But one of the things that I keep wondering through this process is there's a lot of people who are probably listening to this and hopefully saying, I'm in, I agree with you, Andrew, you're totally right. We need to figure out how to do this. But I'd be curious, in your journey of trying to learn this, were there any unexpected pitfalls, blockades that could potentially cause you to fail in making this type of transition that you'd be willing to offer people who are trying to start this journey to figure out, so they can avoid falling in the pit?
Yeah, pretty much every day. And some of these are going to be obvious ones, but they still are around for every company. Number one is organizational silos, siloing of processes, of data in particular, of people. So it took us, as an example, 3 years to identify and get access to every bit of data within Cisco. We knew the major ones. We'd learn of others. But sometimes we'd go to a team and they'd say, you can't have access to my data. Like, wait, it's not your data. Like, it's Cisco. What are you talking about? So the organizational silo issue is real at any organization with more than 3 people in it. So that's number one. And to overcome that by building coalitions with people, by aligning to the care abouts and the metrics of other people and showing how this customer-centric approach will lift all boats, right? So this is not an either or who's going to win here. So that's one. Data is a huge issue, I find, for companies that are just getting started. It's the number one step companies need to take, but it can be hard. It can be hard to access the data. Maybe companies don't have telemetry built into their products or the ability to capture telemetry in their products. So, new data sources have to be built in, but it's thinking about, if I had X information, I could do Y with my customers or get my customers to do Y. So do you have X in the terms of data? If you do you have access to it? Do you have access to it in an automated, real or near-time real way? If not, what improvements do you need to make to your infrastructure in order to do that, right? So focusing in on data and understanding the data you need, and then making sure you're in a position from a talent standpoint and a technology or tech stack standpoint to be able to use that data is important. And then a third area is there has to be an education process within the company to make sure that other teams understand and want to collaborate. Like we had to do this with the Cisco. We were evangelists for the most part when we got started. Before we were doing anything else, we were just evangelizing about the discipline of experience. So that has to take place, as well as then bringing in the talent to make sure that you know how to use the data, to make sure that you know how to build journeys, to make sure that you know how to work with the customer to get the voice of the customer. A lot of that could be done with AI nowadays, right? By looking at communities and whether that be a company's community or Reddit or whatever, right? So you don't have to do tons of customer research the old-fashioned way, but you need to understand your customers, right? So that sort of technical CX-related talent is important. I'd say those are 3 big gaps that companies can fall into when they're trying to move forward with this.
Andrew, this has been fantastic. I've had I already know that tomorrow I'm going to go listen to a recording of our onboarding call for our platform and go listen to it and see that experience and what it was like, and send out some survey questions to some of our customers. Cause I was just like, yeah, what is the experience? I think I know what it is, but I want to actually go through it and then ask my customers about that. I mean, that's an easy place for me to start. With SaaS Therapy, we always end with asking the question of, if you could give a homework assignment to our audience, because any good therapy session, the therapist leaves you and says, hey, let's put this into practice this week, and then next week we'll talk about it. If you could give our audience a homework assignment, what would it be?
Oh, I love being on the other side of this, being able to give rather than receive the homework assignment. All right, so I'm going to tie it to what I just discussed, because I think those are the three biggest hurdles. Is identify. So two things. One, for your current business, identify what data you have that's tied to your current business, and not just, if we're trying to drive renewals, what's our churn rate, what's our renewal rate, yes, that, and what's the process that people take to renew? Like, really understand that renewals journey from the process step. And then your sort of advanced level, like, that'll get you a B in my class. If you want to get an A in my class, the homework is then figuring out two things. How can I take that existing renewals journey and make it simpler? Are there clicks I can take out of their process? Am I asking for information in a form fill or something like that I already know, so why I'm asking for it again? Right? Customers say, know me. Well, if I know you, shouldn't be asking for the same information. So one, how can I simplify that? And the second thing is, from a growth perspective, a lot of growth happens at the renewal process. So from a growth perspective, if I had this data, I could I could upsell over here. So there was a tire manufacturer, just really quickly, there was a tire manufacturer that sold to fleets, and they wanted to sell more tires. And they talked to their customers who said, if I knew, like, I believe everything you're saying about how I'm spending, I'm wasting money on gas costs because I let my tire treads get too low. And I trust you when you tell me what the optimal tire tread level is for me to then replace the tire. But I don't have the manpower to go check every tire every time that, one of my 1,000 trucks pulls into a stop. Like, that's not going to happen. So yes, I believe you. It ain't going to happen. So knowing that, the manufacturer of the tires then inserted a chip into the tires that tracked tread level. So they had an automatic tracking system that they could then share with their customers, either in meetings or in a self-serve portal, that said, this truck, last seen at this place, back rear tire should be replaced at the next, in the next 50 miles, whatever it was. Now they have the data to be able to share with the customer to drive sales. So that's an example of what I mean. If I had X data, I could do Y. So those two things get you an A in my class.
Andrew, I have loved this conversation. Two reasons. One is I love data, and I love that you love data. And I love that when I throw out an analogy, you take it even further. So Andrew, it's been a pleasure having you on. Thank you for being a guest with us today. It's been awesome. You're amazing. SaaS Therapy is brought to you by Brainstorm, the SaaS platform for SaaS adoption. Learn more at brainstorminc.com.